Hi, my name is Jess. Welcome to Books Past Bedtime. Because we are readers, I think we probably all know what the Goodreads Choice Awards are and that they happen every single year. But if you're new and you don't know what the Goodreads Choice Awards are, they are a yearly event put on by Goodreads where I guess some team at Goodreads picks the top 15 books of the year, and then Goodreads users can then vote on those books through multiple rounds until at the end a ultimate winner is announced. Typically this ends up being a popularity contest as there are no real rules when voting for your favorite book. Usually most people just vote for the book they recognize. Sometimes people haven't read a single book in the category, much less all of the books in the category to really cast a fair vote. So usually the winners end up being not necessarily the best book, but just the most read book of that year. And there's nothing wrong with this per se, but there are a lot of criticisms surrounding the Goodreads Choice Awards. It would be nice if they could incorporate some other factors, such as average rating, into their awards. But at the end of the day, that is not the case. This is just a fun time, and it is always fun for the authors to win, so there's really nothing like inherently wrong with this. It's not really hurting anybody, but I think me and a lot of other people do wish it could be a little bit different. But regardless, some of my favorite videos on BookTube to watch are always when my favorite creators read all of the books in a certain category of the Goodreads Choice Awards so that they can give their own ranking and talk about who they personally think deserves to win out of the choices given. So that is what I'm going to be doing in this video. I am going to be reading the top 10 fiction nominees. So we are currently in the opening round, which takes place from October 27th to November 8th. And in this opening round, we have our initial 15 books to choose from, and we can vote for our favorite in this round. And then the second round takes place from November 10th to the 15th. And in this round, there will be 20 books as it will incorporate 5 of the top most popular write-ins. But historically, these write-ins don't have enough time to get the votes needed to progress to the top 10. So usually they don't matter. I'm not really going to talk about those in this video unless something crazy comes up. So that round is basically just going to be ignored. The final round is from November 17th to the 30th, and this is where we will find out our official top 10. And then the winner and the number of votes that the top 10 books get will be announced on December 8th. So as I mentioned, right now we have 15 books, and I will go through those with you right now. You can see on the screen as I scroll through the books that are currently in this category. The first is Transcendent Kingdom by 𝗂𝗫𝗄, If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha, Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, The Glass Hotel by Emily St. Mandel, My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell, Luster by Raven Leilani, Big Summer by Jennifer Weiner, The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Daré, Anxious People by Frederick Bachman, Homeland Elegies by Ayad Akhtar, American Dirt by Janine Cummings, Dear Edward by Ann Napolitano, A Burning by Megha Majumdar, and Writers and Lovers by Lily King. So those are the current books in the running for the Goodreads Choice Awards within the first round. And like I mentioned earlier, my goal is to read the top 10, which will be revealed in the third and final round, but I do want to start reading now. So I've attempted to predict which books will end up in the top 10 so that I don't end up reading 4 to 5 extra books. And like I previously mentioned, and as we all know, the Goodreads Choice Awards is a popularity contest. So I've written out average ratings, number of reviews for all of the books on the list in order to compare and contrast and kind of try to guess which books will end up in the top 10. That being said, if we are just looking at ratings and reviews and who has the most, these 10 books will be in the top 10, meaning that A Burning, Luster, If I Had Your Face, Homeland Elegies, and Transcendent Kingdom would all be eliminated from the running. All of these books have less than 16,000 ratings/reviews. But if we are looking at lowest average rating, Luster, A Burning, If I Had Your Face, Big Summer, and The Glass Hotel would all be eliminated. So taking that information into account, A Burning, Luster, and If I Had Your Face are all 3 among the lowest rated and the least reviewed books. So I think it's pretty safe to eliminate those 3, which is sad because A Burning is one of the few on this list that I've actually read. But my prediction is that it will not end up in the top 10, and I'm just not going to worry about rating Luster or If I Had Your Face unless somehow they end up in the top 10. I also am going to go ahead and eliminate Homeland Elegies. I do not think it will advance to the top 10 just because it only has about 800 total ratings. On the other hand, Big Summer and The Glass Hotel, which both have some of the lowest ratings, they both have 50,000 reviews at least, so I think it's pretty safe to say that they are more likely to end up in the top 10 than Transcendent Kingdom. So I'm just going to go ahead and eliminate the 5 that I mentioned that have the lowest amount of ratings. I just think it's safe to say that those are going to be the ones that will be eliminated from the top 10. So with that in mind, this will be my predicted top 10. I'm not putting them in any kind of order. I'm not even going to try and do that because that'll just be a mess. But as I read, I will let you know my own personal order, and then we can compare that to the final order. I do want to throw out there though that I predict that American Dirt by Janine Cummings will be the winner of the Goodreads Choice Award for Fiction because it currently sits at one of the highest average ratings, and it also has the highest number of reviews and ratings. It has over 175,000 reviews and an average rating of 4.31. So I think this is a pretty easy choice for a winning prediction. Although I do want to note that this book has received a lot of criticism because it was written by a white woman about the Mexican-American immigrant experience. I honestly was kind of surprised to see it in the Goodreads Choice Awards because I know it's been pretty polarizing. I wasn't really interested in it because of this criticism, but I will still be reading the book for this video, so I just wanted to throw that out there. I haven't personally read the book yet or really done a ton of extensive research into the criticisms, so I just wanted to throw that out there so that you are aware that I'm aware. Of these 15 books, I have already read 3, and like I mentioned, Burning is one of the ones that I was planning to eliminate from my top 10 predictions and thus my TBR, so that is a shame. I might still include it in my own personal rankings just because I have read it, and I will kind of see where I would put it if I was the creator of the Goodreads Choice Awards. But then with the other 4 books that I'm planning to eliminate, that leaves me with a TBR of 8 books to read throughout this reading vlog. Of the books though that I have already read, I just recently finished *𝗥𝗄𝗃 𝗵𝗃 by Frederick Backman. This is an amazing story following quite a cast of characters. The main thread connecting them all is that they are all involved in this bank robbery slash hostage situation, but our bank robber slash hostage taker is really bad at doing what they were trying to do. And so this book, while at its core is about that, it is really about the human experience and human nature, and that sometimes we make bad decisions for good reasons. Sometimes the most unexpected people are the ones we need most in our lives, and how to not put blame on yourself for things that you ultimately couldn't control. This was a very powerful and very moving book. It definitely made me sob. I loved it so much. I gave this one 5 stars. So for me right now, I would put this one in the #1 slot. I would definitely recommend you read it. Beautifully written, beautiful characters, such a unique story, and it really makes you think. This is definitely going to be in my personal top favorite books of the year, regardless of genre. So this one is going straight to the top of my personal ranking. Earlier this year, I also read Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid. This is a racial and social commentary book disguised as a sitcom style story. It follows our main character. She's a young black girl who is a nanny for this rich white family. And one night while she's babysitting, her and the kid are at this grocery store, and a woman and a security guard at the grocery store think the little white girl has been kidnapped by our main character, and so they get involved and start to accuse her of kidnapping, and it just sets off this crazy chain of events where even though it's not a super big deal to the main character, a lot of the white characters in the book really feel the need to intervene on her behalf. They start being performative activists and doing things that our main character doesn't necessarily agree with or need. So this book, even though it sounds pretty serious, gets really messy, and honestly it's a fun time and an easy read, but it does really pack an important message about performative activism and white wokeness and how it's not necessarily needed and how it really can be taken in the wrong direction and cause more harm than good. I really liked this book a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. I liked that it was messy. I liked that it was easy to read, but at the end of the day, I did like that it packed a strong emotional and like philosophical punch, and so I give this book 4 stars. I really liked it. This is going second in my personal ranking for now. And then I have read Burning by Megha Majumdar. This is a story that takes place in contemporary India, and it follows 3 main characters whose lives all kind of intertwine in the background of this event that happens, this train bombing. One character is accused of inciting it and being involved. Another character who used to be her teacher provides evidence against her in court, and our third character has the accused alibi, but as a transgender woman, her word doesn't hold a lot of weight. So this is definitely a politically charged story following these 3 main characters. I did think this book was good, but it wasn't necessarily my favorite, and the ending was very depressing and reliant on shock value, which I'm not necessarily a huge fan of. I did like this one. I did think it was important and interesting to learn about the Indian political system, but I did give it 3 stars. It was just an average read for me, and I'm going to put it 3rd in my current ranking. So those are the 3 books that I've read so far in my current ranking. I don't know what book I'm going to start next, but when I do, I will let you know my thoughts and where it sits within my ranking. Hello friends, I have finished my 4th book, I believe, for this reading challenge, and that is My Dark Vanessa by 𝗕𝗏 Russell. This book was a really interesting reading experience. If you're interested in this book, I definitely would look up trigger warnings, especially for like sexual abuse, grooming, manipulation, gaslighting, reading, our main character, Vanessa, when she was 15, was coerced into a sexual relationship with her teacher. He was triple her age, gaslighted and manipulated her so bad that she believed that it was a consensual relationship. She didn't see herself as getting abused. Even when she is 30, 15 years later, she still doesn't really recognize the abuse and manipulation she experienced. Part of her does, but part of her really doesn't, and really still wants to have a relationship with this man, and he just kind of infiltrates every aspect of her life. It really is a very powerful and moving story, and I really can understand why some people don't like this book. There's a lot of people out there that really hate it, and I think it's because the way the main character reacts to her own abuse and trauma. And I will admit, it was very uncomfortable to read about, very unsettling, being inside of her head and seeing her thought processes on why she didn't feel she was abused. But she really has to take a hard look at herself throughout this novel, because there are a bunch of other girls from the school that she went to also coming forward with sexual abuse allegations against this teacher, and she is kind of working through that throughout this novel. I actually really liked it and thought it was successful in what it was trying to do. It was really trying to show the effects of grooming and manipulation on somebody who is vulnerable, malleable. It really permeated her life and affected her person. I don't know how something like that couldn't, but she was just in so deep and didn't have any other support system other than him. She really was affected even deeper than some people, and I think the psychological aspects of this book were really well done and really interesting to read about. This book was by no means enjoyable, and I definitely was very frustrated with the main character and wanted more of a resolution, wanted to see her grow more. But this book was very realistic and that she did grow, and I really enjoyed the scenes of her going to therapy and opening up to her therapist, because that's great representation to show somebody who is suffering taking steps to rectify that. She definitely had unhealthy coping mechanisms, but it was cool to see her actually also going to therapy, trying to work through it. It just felt like a very realistic portrayal because she does grow. She doesn't have this big epiphany, but I did think this book was well done, and that was very realistic and heartrendingly honest. I would recommend this book to a certain kind of reader, but definitely not everybody. I would be just very aware of your mental state going into this. Put it down if you're getting triggered. Definitely research more trigger warnings in depth than what I went into, because I don't always recognize everything that could possibly be triggering to others. But those are just some of the things that were really blatant to me. But overall, I honestly want to give this book 4 stars, because I definitely think that it was well done, like I said, but it wasn't an enjoyable read for me. But I think it was really well written and really well crafted. So I think I'm going to give it 4 stars actually, which then would put it in second place after 𝗥𝗍 People. I might think on that a little bit, but I think that this did do what it was trying to do a little bit better than Such a Fun Age. So I do think that I liked this one a little bit more than Such a Fun Age. But yeah, that's my ranking for now. If I change it, I will discuss with you, but that's how I felt about this book. I definitely liked it and appreciated it for what it was trying to do. I think it did that successfully, but it wasn't a pleasant reading experience, so I can't give it 5 stars, because that's just not a 5-star book for me, if you know what I mean. So those are my thoughts. Sorry it was a little long, but I will let you know when I read my next book. Hello friends, sorry I look like this. I just cannot convince myself to put makeup on to film a 5-minute clip, so that's just how it is. But I did want to pop on here and do a quick update, because the official top 10 list has now been posted for all categories. So in our fiction category, the books in the top 10 are The Glass Hotel, The Midnight Library, Transcendent Kingdom, Dear Edward, American Dirt, Such a Fun Age, Big Summer, My Dark Vanessa, Anxious People, and The Girl with the Louding Voice. So this is pretty close to my predicted top 10 list. The only one that is swapped out is Writers and Lovers. I predicted that would be in the top 10, but it did not make the cut. Instead, Transcendent Kingdom made the cut, which I'm actually really happy about, because I'm super interested in reading Transcendent Kingdom, so I'm glad that it can be on my official TBR. Now, as for reading updates, I did finish Big Summer by Jennifer Weiner yesterday, so glad it made the cut because I already read it. I enjoyed this one, but it was a little bit weird because the first 50% we're following our main character, Daphne, who is a plus-size influencer, blogger, fashion model, model kind of girl, and she's just living her life, but then her old friend from high school, who was really very toxic, very mean to her, who she cut out of her life when she was 19, actually comes back into her life and asks her to be in her wedding. This girl, Drew, she has alienated pretty much everybody in her life, doesn't have any friends, doesn't have anybody to be in her wedding, and so she returns and tries to rekindle her friendship with Daphne. Daphne is a little bit hesitant, but she ends up agreeing. It's a good opportunity. She gets to go to Cape Cod and shoot some pictures for Instagram deals that she has, and also she has always kind of felt drawn to Drew and wants to give her a second chance and hope that she's changed. So she goes out to the Cape to her wedding, and the first half of this book, the tone is very much like chick litty, just a fun kind of summery read, but then it takes a turn in that it kind of becomes a murder mystery story. And I'd actually heard this from my friend Katie's review over at Katie and Her Cats. She did a non-spoiler review on this book, and I watched it back in the day, and I remember her saying that, and I definitely would agree with what she said. It was just a weird like plot tonal shift in the book, and I didn't really think that, like, it wasn't as aggressive of a tonal shift as you might think, but it definitely was weird and took the book in just a really weird direction. And like, it was kind of interesting, and it definitely felt high stakes, but it didn't read like a thriller either, so it just was like this weird in-between kind of book. I definitely enjoyed aspects of it. I really enjoyed the representation that Daphne provided in being a plus-size woman, a fat woman. Like, she definitely expressed some relatable feelings and opinions, but the way the plot went just wasn't my favorite. I also wasn't a huge fan of the writing. Jennifer Weiner really took the make sure your audience can see, hear, and smell what's going on in every scene to heart. Literally every other sentence was Daphne smelled this, or Daphne heard this, or Daphne whatever saw this. And I was like, okay, this is a lot of description about meaningless things that don't really matter. Like, every once in a while it's like a good thing to throw in there to really set the scene and ground your reader in the setting, but at the same time, it really jarred me out of the story every time she was like tasting oysters or smelling the salt water or whatever. I was like, okay, enough description, I get it, let's move on. So I didn't really love that aspect of the writing. This was just like a meh book for me. I think I'm gonna end up rating it 3 stars, and I think it's gonna go towards the bottom of my ranking. So as my ranking stands right now with this one in it, Anxious People is still first, then I'm gonna keep My Dark Vanessa in second, and I'm also gonna keep Such a Fun Age in third, and then I'm gonna put Big Summer fourth, and even though A Burning is not in the ranking, we're still ranking it for now, and that will be in last place. So those are my thoughts on Big Summer. Okay, won't be voting for her. The next book I will update you on will be Dear Edward. I have started this one. I'm not very far into it. I'm liking it all right so far. It's definitely really weird, so I'm interested to see where it's going to go, but I will definitely update you when I'm finished. Hello, I have an update for you. So I finished Dear Edward by Ann Napolitano, and I really liked this one. I think I gave it 4 stars. Definitely really enjoyed it. So in this book, we are following our main character, Edward. He was traveling on a plane with his family from, I think, Newark, New Jersey to LA, and the flight ended up having technical difficulties and crashing, and Edward is the only survivor of this plane crash, and so he has to deal with the aftermath of losing his family, readjusting to life, and learning how to live. Basically, he's only 12 when this happens, so he has a lot of adjusting to do, grieving to do. This book is definitely about grief and also like survivor's guilt and what you do when you are given basically a second chance in a new life when so many other people had their lives taken away from them. The book is very powerful. It is dual timelines, so we are following both Edward post-crash, and that timeline alternates with the actual timeline leading up to the plane crash. So that dual narrative definitely kept me interested in this book, and it made me want to keep turning the page to figure out what happened, because it almost becomes kind of a mystery, like what happened with the plane crash. And while I liked that to some extent, I did feel that we spent a lot of time getting to know all the people on the plane, and I didn't really feel like that was necessary, that had a big reason in the end or any big payoff. I kind of just felt like we were wasting time getting to know these people who really had no bearing on the plot or anything, but that was honestly a small complaint. Like, it was interesting learning about them, I just didn't think it was like necessarily super essential, and I kind of kept getting confused about who was who on the plane because we only spent such a limited amount of time with them and they really weren't impacting anybody else in the story. So that wasn't my favorite thing, but overall I did really enjoy this book. I liked the writing style. I thought it was well paced, like I said. I also really enjoyed Edward as a main character. It was really interesting watching him grow and deal with this grief, and I think it had some good discussions in here, especially because he goes to therapy, and we see some of that, and he speaks with his therapist. He's like, I really feel like everybody else has moved on, but 3 years later and I'm still thinking about this every day, and just like confirming that that's the way that he deals with that, and that's valid, and he probably will never forget about it because it was such a traumatic incident and nobody else has the same experience that he has. He goes to live with his aunt, uncle, and next door is this girl named Shay. She befriends him. She's definitely one of my favorite characters in this book. She's just kind of like spunky and quirky and doesn't take anybody's shit, and she's just great. She's really good for Edward as well, and I just really like them together. She really helps him a lot. And so overall, I just really liked this story. I definitely am going to give it 4 stars. I actually think I'm going to go ahead and put this in second place for now, after Anxious People and before Dear Vanessa. Even though it got the same rating as Dear Vanessa, I definitely like enjoy the reading experience of this one a little bit more than Dear Vanessa, and I'm not supposed to enjoy the reading experience of Dear Vanessa, but just in my own personal opinion, now I'm second guessing myself because I feel like Dear Vanessa kind of had more good things to say. You know, I think I'm going to put this one after Dear Vanessa because even though I enjoyed this one more, I think Dear Vanessa had a better point to get across and is more of an important read than this book, even though this one was a more enjoyable read, if that makes sense. And they both have their faults, so that's what I'm going to do, I think. So it goes Anxious People, Dear Vanessa. Why am I saying Dear Vanessa? It's called My Dark Vanessa. Anyway, Anxious People, My Dark Vanessa, Dear Edward. That's why I'm saying Dear Vanessa. And then Such a Fun Age, I think. And I'll put it on the screen. I don't remember off the top of my head what my ranking is. I started The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. Is that her name? I should really prepare before I turn the camera on for what I'm gonna say. But anyway, I started that one on audio, so that will probably be the next one I update you on, but I just started it. So that is the plan. I'll talk to you in a minute. Hello, I have read 2 books since I last talked to you. The first of which is The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. This story takes place in a non-linear timeline, so it jumps back and forth from like really past, kind of past, and like present. I don't really know the exact years. I listened to this on audio, so some of those like little details I don't remember very well. But basically this follows this group of people that was involved in this Ponzi scheme. I don't know what that is and I haven't looked it up yet, so don't ask me what it is because I don't know. But it's some kind of investment scheme where like people think they're investing money into like stocks or something, but they're not investing money into stocks. Their money's just getting stolen. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so it's like about this guy that runs this company that's involved in this Ponzi scheme, his like wife and like his other wife and like her brother, all these people. There's lots of characters. There's so much going on in this book. I think the best way I can describe my feelings about this book is that there was so much going on and I cared about none of it. So for me, this book was just trying to do way too much. I think the main story kind of revolves around our main girl, Vincent. Vincent is somebody who is kind of troubled as a young person, but then she meets this man in like when she's in her early 20s or something, gets married to him. He is the businessman that ends up having this company that's involved in this Ponzi scheme. So that's a whole timeline and like her rich life, her new rich life. But then sometimes we're following her in the past too, where she's with her brother, and her brother is a drug addict. I think we're following some other characters of people who worked at the company, but they had no bearing on the story at all. So they had I have no recollection of them in my mind. Couldn't tell you their names, couldn't tell you where they were. I think we followed the secretary for a bit, and I don't know. I didn't like this book very much, if you couldn't tell. I really wasn't a fan. To me, it just was boring. I was not interested in the story. I wasn't interested in any of the characters. I didn't feel like I spent enough time with any of the characters to get to know them, to really like them or connect to them. And I don't know that any of the characters in this were really supposed to be likable, but I have to be at least interested in the characters. You know, like I know that you don't have to like every character in a book, and some of my favorite books have unlikable characters, but you have to be interested in the characters' lives, you know, and I just was not. I just simply was not. I have heard that a lot of people like this book just for the writing, like they think the writing is beautiful, and maybe some of that was lost in translation by listening to the audio, like I will admit, but my physical book had to go back to the library and this was the only way that I could consume it for the time being, and there was nothing wrong with the audiobook. Like I liked the narration and everything, so I don't know if that was a huge problem, but just thought I would mention it. So I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars because I think it does have some objective merit, but I didn't really like it at all. And now reflecting back, I kind of want to just give it 2 stars. So this actually is going to go to the very bottom of my list. I really need to make note of my list because I'm not freaking editing this as I go, so I don't really remember what's going on. Okay, I don't know what my ranking was before this, but I've redone it anyway. So my new ranking is number 1 is still Anxious People. Number 2 is My Dark Vanessa. Number 3 is Such a Fun Age, which I think I had put Dear Edward before that, but I think I'm going to switch them because I do think that Such a Fun Age is more of an important read and a better read. Like, I still think about it, but I don't think I will still think about Dear Edward like 3 months from now. So then Dear Edward comes after that, and then A Burning, Big Summer, The Glass Hotel. That's it. That's my ranking. So The Glass Hotel is last. Bad. But then I also recently finished The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and I really enjoyed this one. So this is basically following our main character, Nora, and Nora's really having a rough go of it. She doesn't really like her life. She feels like she's just trapped in this cycle of misery and cannot get out of it, and so she decides to take her own life, but she is not quite successful, and she ends up in a little in-between state where she's in this library, and in this library is her old school librarian, and her old school librarian tells her that she can take any book off the shelf and open the pages and step into a new life where she made a different decision, so she's living a different life, and if that life is what she really wants, she can stay there, but if not, she ends up coming back to the library and starting over again. And so this really explores the idea of the multiverse, that there are so many different paths that your life can take, and those different paths are existing outside of your like root life. It's hard to explain, conceptualize, but I think most people know about the theory of the multiverse, and so this was a really interesting way to explore it. This was almost kind of written as a parable, because the point of it is that like Nora goes in and explores all these different lives, and some of her biggest regrets in life she's able to choose the opposite path, take the different course that she regrets not taking in her root life, but then realizes that this necessarily isn't what she wanted either, so she can kind of reduce those regrets and realize that she can kind of make the best of whatever situation she's in. So this definitely had a lot of really cool lessons in it and that kind of thing, but also I felt like that detracted from the point a little bit. Like, I thought the point was just a little bit too obvious. Like, I just appreciate some nuance in my books, you know, like if I'm gonna give them like a 5-star, I have to feel like I've come to the conclusion myself, you know? I don't like being told what to do. Just being honest here. So that was kind of one thing that I had both liked and disliked. Like, I liked it, but it kind of detracted from my overall rating, if that makes any sense. I don't know, I'm just rambling about shit. But I did really like this one. I definitely think I'm gonna give it 3 stars, maybe 3 stars, 4 stars, maybe like 3.75. Like, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I've heard it's made people cry, and I didn't cry. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. So that kind of lowered the rating a little bit for me too. I don't know. I did listen to the audiobook though, and it had an English narrator, so I liked the accent. That was fun. That's this one. In my rankings, it's going to go, I think it's gonna go between Such a Fun Age and My Dark Vanessa. This actually probably was one of my favorites that I've read so far, so I think it's gonna get the 3rd place spot for now. These ones in the middle are kind of hard because I feel similarly about them all. They're all just kind of like good, but not 5 stars, you know? So I don't know. That's where I'm gonna put it for now. I'll let you know if things change. That is my update. I think I only have 3 books to go, so I will let you know when I finish those and keep you updated. Hello, just popping in for an update. So I did finish American Dirt by Janine Cummings, and I don't really quite know how to review this book. I just want to say that I'm going to be linking Own Voices reviews down in the description below, because those are the most important reviews, and most Own Voices reviews are not a fan of this book, and I understand why. This book was written by a white woman about Mexican American immigrants. This book had a lot of money put into it as far as promoting it and PR and that kind of stuff. She was given a huge advance for this book, paid a lot of money, and it has been kind of touted as the Mexican immigrant experience. And coming from a white woman, I can understand why Mexican Americans are very frustrated by that. It's really a shame that this book is not Own Voices, that an Own Voices author wasn't the one that got all this money and this backing to write this book about the Mexican American immigrant experience. That definitely should have been the priority of the publishing company. I 100% agree with those reviews and 100% believe in them wholeheartedly. And I really wish there wasn't that discrimination and that unfairness, that gap in the publishing industry. But unfortunately there is, and that really needs to be rectified. I 100% agree with that. So that being said, I am very conflicted about how I feel about this book. If I didn't know about these Own Voices reviews going into this story, I definitely probably would have rated it 5 stars. Like, I think at the core of it, the prose of this story is beautiful. The story itself is really well done, very compelling. Like, you want to keep reading the whole time throughout. You become very attached to the characters. There were definitely scenes in here that induced anxiety in me. Like, I was very anxious to see what was going to happen because I had become so attached to these characters and they were put in such horrible situations. So, like, as a reader experiencing this story, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a very well written, well done book, and I do believe that the author put a lot of research into it. But at the same time, it definitely should not be touted as the immigrant experience by any means. That should only be given given to an 𝗏𝑣𝑜�ices author writing a book about their own experiences or the experiences of their family, etc. So that's why it's so hard for me to rate this book. I feel very conflicted. I didn't even explain what this was about. So if you didn't know, this book follows a mother and a son whose whole entire family at the very beginning is murdered by a really powerful cartel in Mexico. This cartel is also after them. Specifically, the mother, as the leader of this cartel, had a personal relationship with her, and her husband is a journalist. It's really dangerous to be a journalist in Mexico because of these cartels and just the way that information is disseminated and things are kept quiet, that kind of thing. And so this mother and her son feel that they really need to escape because their lives are now in danger, especially since with all their family gone, they have nowhere else to go. So they decide to try and get to America to escape from the influence and the power of these cartels. So they go on this like terrible journey. There is just corruption everywhere, gang influence everywhere, cartel influence everywhere. So it's very unsafe. It's a very unsafe journey, but along the way they do meet a lot of people that remind you that there is a lot of good in the world and there are people out there that do things just out of the goodness of their heart. So it is a very traumatizing story, but it's also very hopeful. Jeanine Cummings is definitely a very skilled author. She's very well written, very much just has a way with words and is a very good storyteller. So I really did enjoy my experience reading this book, but I do wish that it was 𝗏𝑣𝑜ices. Like, that's the core of it. I do think that I personally enjoyed this one more than Anxious People, but I don't think that this one should win the Goodreads Choice Awards by any means, so I am going to rank it below Anxious People, but I think this is also a 5-star read for me. But that's kind of what I'm going to do because I don't think this deserves to win any awards per se, but I do think that this was a really well done story and a very good read. So that's American Dirt, but I also wanted to update you on the fact that the Goodreads winners have been posted for every single category, so we are going to go in now and react to them. My prediction was that American Dirt was going to win the category, and I already know that it did not. So I'm pretty sure Midnight Library won, which is very interesting to me. I was not expecting that at all. Like, I thought American Dirt or Anxious People were probably likely to win, but maybe that's just because of the circles that I'm in. I don't know. But I don't know any of the other places, so let's hop on and see what else won. All right, so let's go into the fiction awards. We can already see that Midnight Library by Matt Haig was the winner. And then in second place was Anxious People by Frederick Bachman, American Dirt by Jeanine Cummings, Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed, My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell, The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel, Transcendent Kingdom by 𝗂𝘃𝗵𝗄, Girl with the Lauding Voice by Abby Dare, Dear Edward by Anna Napolitano, Big Summer by Jennifer Weiner, and then Writers and Lovers, If I Had Your Face, A Burning Luster in an Instant. I guess I didn't even look at the write-ins. Whoops. Ooh, The Death of 𝗵𝗏 𝗏𝗪 was a write-in, which I love. I loved that book. As you can see, I rated it 5 stars. So that's super interesting. Okay. Honestly, it's very similar to my ranking as it currently stands. The Midnight Library was not first for me, but Anxious People was, and then American Dirt was next, and then I think My Dark Vanessa was after that, and then Such a Fun Age. I don't honestly know what my ranking is right now. So that's the top 10, the Goodreads top 10 for fiction, and as a comparison, here is my top 10. I'll switch back and forth a couple times just so you can see the difference. Very similar so far, but I still have yet to read The Girl with the Lauding Voice and Transcendent Kingdom, so I will read those and then I will let you know my final ranking as it compares to Goodreads' final ranking. Alright, I have an update. So I did want to quickly talk about American Dirt again. So I know I said in the last clip that I did really enjoy this, but upon further reflection, I really think it's very important to listen to 𝗏𝑣𝑜ices reviewers, and 𝗏𝑣𝑜ices reviewers are saying that this book is not good. So I have chosen to not rate this on Goodreads, and I'm also going to go ahead and move it to the bottom of my ranking, kind of as like I'm not ranking it kind of deal, but if I would, it would be last, I guess. So that's where this book is going. I just don't really feel comfortable promoting it or promoting my opinion about it when 𝗏𝑣𝑜ices reviewers are telling us that it's not good. That's the tea on that, but I have finished another book. So last night I did finish Transcendent Kingdom by 𝗂𝘃𝗵𝗄, and I really enjoyed this book quite a lot. This book follows our main character 𝗪𝗪𝗪, and 𝗪𝗪𝗪 is a very talented scientist. She's a neuroscientist, so science is a big component of her life, but she was also raised religious. She was raised with the Christian faith, and so a lot of this novel is focused on how both of those aspects of 𝗪𝗪𝗪's life can coexist. This book is written in vignette format. It goes back and forth between past and present as we kind of like get a complete picture of 𝗤𝗄𝗄's life and the events that really impacted her a lot. She has a brother that suffers from addiction, a mother that suffers from depression, which is mainly why she became a neuroscientist, because she wanted to study the brain and figure out if there was ways to scientifically fix or help people with these afflictions. And so at the core, this book is about the intersection between religion and science and how both things can coexist in somebody's life. So this book brings up a lot of really cool points. It was very, very beautifully written. I really enjoyed the writing so much. It's probably one of my favorite parts. I have tabs in here. You can't see them because they're yellow, but just anytime there was like a beautiful or profound line. It's really short, but it really packs a huge punch. It gets at a lot of different topics. Obviously, it's about the intersection of religion and science, but 𝗤𝗄𝗄 is an immigrant from Ghana, so those issues are discussed. She is obviously a Black woman and deals with a lot of racism in her life. It's a very introspective novel, so it's not necessarily about the racism, but about how the racism affects 𝗤𝗄𝗄 and how she kind of internalizes it, and her own issues with confidence and the way she interacts with the world. Overall, I really, really enjoyed this book. I really liked the subject matter. I thought it was beautifully written. I really liked 𝗤𝗄𝗄 as a character. I really felt for her. I definitely got emotional reading this book. The only thing I really have a complaint about is the ending. I just thought the story just kind of ended, and then there was like a weird epilogue kind of chapter where everything was just wrapped up nicely, and I didn't feel that fit with the tone of the book very well, so I didn't love that. But I did think this was a really powerful and moving story, and I really want to rate it either 4 or 4.5 stars. So that's that. Let me look at my ranking really quick and figure out where we're gonna put this one. Alright, so for our new ranking, we have Anxious People in first still. I think I'm gonna put My Dark Vanessa in second. This video is probably really fucking confusing because I keep changing my ranking. It's really hard for me to like compare books though, I'm finding, and like rank them in an order of how much I liked them, because a lot of the books, like especially in the middle, are like I feel similarly about them, and then my emotions change about them as time goes on. So that's why this keeps flipping around. I'm sorry if it's confusing. I mean, I'm just trying to keep you updated, but the most important ranking will be the one that I do at the end, and that will be my like official one. But I think we're getting down to the nitty gritty. So second, My Dark Vanessa. If we're moving American Dirt to the bottom, the one that I had next would have been The Midnight Library, but upon further reflection, I don't like it as much as I like did initially. It's not something that's very memorable for me or anything. So I think in third place, I'm actually going to put Transcendent Kingdom, and then in fourth place, I'm going to put Such a Fun Age, and then The Midnight Library for me will go in fifth place. Dear Edward will go in sixth. A Burning will go in seventh. Big Summer in eighth. The Glass Hotel in ninth, and American Dirt down there in the weird 11th place category. So that is my update. I only have one book left to read finally, and that is The Girl with the Louding Voice by 𝗵𝗵𝗃. I have started this one. I am like a third of the way through, so I'm kind of hoping to finish today and update you again tonight with my final rankings and wrapping up this video. This video is taking me way too long to film, so I'm kind of ready to be done, but I'm excited to read this one. Also, like, I feel like this one's going to be a favorite, and that's kind of why I saved it to last. That just makes no sense, but, and I'm going to film my top 15 of 2020 today, and I feel like I'm gonna want to put this on it after I finish this book, so I'm like, but oh well. So yeah, I will let you know when I finish that book, and so I'll talk to you then. Sorry if you can hear my family talking upstairs, but this is the best we're gonna get for the time being. But I did want to update you and let you know that I did finish The Girl with the Louding Voice by 𝗵𝗵𝗃. I don't have the dust jacket, I'm sorry, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna feel like editing this. You know what? I'm gonna edit the cover on the screen for this video. So I did just finish this book and I absolutely loved it. I'm really glad I saved this one for last because it was definitely one of my favorites. If you didn't know, this book is about a young Nigerian girl named Aduni, and Aduni, her mother always advocated for her to get an education, but unfortunately her mother passed away, and her father is kind of down on his luck, needs some money, so he ends up selling her into a very terrible marriage. This is an awful situation. Aduni manages to escape, but she just ends up in a little bit of a less worse situation, but still a really bad situation as a housemaid for this woman. But then she learns of this opportunity for a scholarship, and she sees this as her only shot for freedom, so she decides to go for it. This was a really beautifully written book. It has this really interesting writing style where Aduni's like really main goal is to learn English and to educate herself, so that she can be a voice for other girls like her that are down on their luck in bad situations in her home country of Nigeria. Throughout the book, as she becomes more educated and betters her English, the writing of the story, like you can hear it in her voice, the English progresses throughout the story as 𝗏𝗍 learns English, which is really cool writing style and really just feels very authentic to her voice. And that's another thing in the story. 𝗏𝗍's voice is amazing. She's very strong and she's just such a unique, beautiful character. I loved spending time with her. Her positivity and resilience in the face of all of the hardships that she experienced was just so incredible and inspiring. Even though there's a lot of hardship that 𝗏𝗍 experiences in this book, there's a lot of scenes that are really difficult to read, that are really just heartbreaking. This really, at the end of the day, is a hopeful story, and I think that is just really awesome. I also really enjoyed learning more about Nigeria in this book. I really didn't know a lot about it going in. There is a lot of poverty in Nigeria as seen through 𝗏𝗍's experiences and her story, but there's also a lot of wealth. Lagos in particular is one of the largest cities in Africa, and it's very, very rich, very populated, and it was just really interesting seeing that contrast and seeing the differing experiences of 𝗏𝗍 throughout this story. So I feel like I really learned a lot through this story, which I loved. I really loved 𝗏𝗍 as a character. She was one of the characters I think that will stay with me the longest of all the books that I've read in 2020. The writing was just gorgeous. The story was just very inspiring. I really liked it a lot, and I liked a lot of the things that it had to say. There was one quote in particular that stood out for me. 𝗏𝗍 meets all kinds of different people of all kinds of different intelligence levels, and she makes the comment that we all be speaking different because we have different growing up lives, but we can all be understanding each other if we just take the time to listen well. And I just thought that was really powerful and very true to 𝗏𝗍's story. I just think that quote really sums up this story nicely. All in all, I really loved this book, and I'm going to give it 5 stars, a very strong 5 stars. I really liked it a lot. And now to decide where I'm going to rank it. I was going back and forth about whether I wanted The Girl with the Louding Voice to be number 1 or if I wanted Anxious People to be number 1. And I do think overall that Anxious People, I liked it just a tiny itty bitty bit more. Anxious People did make me cry while The Girl with the Louding Voice did not. Even though The Girl with the Louding Voice was very, very powerful, I think I'm gonna have to put it in a strong second place. So my number 1 is Anxious People and my number 2 is The Girl with the Louding Voice. So then that would move My Dark Vanessa to 3rd place, Transcendent Kingdom to 4th place, Such a Fun Age to 5th place, and then The Midnight Library will be in 6th, and then number 7 will be Dear Edward, number 8 will be A Burning, number 9 will be Big Summer, number 10 will be The Glass Hotel, and then 11th, kind of in last place, not really counted, is American Dirt. So that is my final official ranking, and we will go ahead and compare it to Goodreads top 10. I will switch them back and forth a little bit so we can see the comparisons. Theirs is semi-similar to mine. So their top 3 is The Midnight Library, Anxious People, and American Dirt, and obviously my top 3 is Anxious People, The Girl with the Louding Voice, and My Dark Vanessa, so a little bit different. For me, Dear Edward and Big Summer are also near the bottom, so there's kind of some similarities, but definitely some differences. I'm kind of sad at how low Transcendent Kingdom and The Girl with the Louding Voice are, as they were definitely in my top 5, my top 50%. So yeah, we have some similarities, but definitely some differences as well. And I kind of definitely disagree with who won the Goodreads Choice Awards, but that was okay. The Midnight Library was still an awesome book. It just wasn't top for me out of all of the books in this category. So this was a very interesting experiment. It definitely took longer than I wanted it to, but I'm really not that mad about it. I read a lot of great books and it was really a fun experiment just to see how I felt about all of the Goodreads Choice Awards, and so I could really compare and see which one I would have actually thought should win. And this really pushed me to read some books that have been on my list forever, like Transcendent Kingdom and The Girl with the Louding Voice, and I ended up really loving both of those, so I'm very glad that I read them. And yeah, this was a really fun video and I really have enjoyed editing it. I think it's going to turn out really well. I'm very proud of it, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you've read any of these books and which of these is your favorite. What did you vote for the Goodreads Choice Awards? All relevant links will be in the description down below. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I would love to be friends over there. And also make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you're notified whenever I make a new video. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! Oh, and P.S. watch out for the thriller version of this coming soon. I've got 2 books left to read, but that will be coming in the new year, so keep an eye out for that. I'm very excited. Sorry these took so long to make, but I think they're really cool videos, so hopefully it's okay. Alright, bye.